It's a bit of a shame that the first recording that I did of this game didn't work out, because I got what I assume is a rare image of Foxy the Pirate on the main menu. Oh well.
Hello? See, I told you wouldn't have any problems.
I didn't, I'm a natural.
Repair the hallway? Probably not. I was just curious. Like I said, he was always my favorite.
And the fan favorite.
They thought the first one was too scary, so they redesigned him to be more kid-friendly and put him in Kids Cove.
No kidding, he was scary.
But kids these days just can't keep their hands to themselves. The staff literally had to put Bumpty back together at the end of every shift. Eventually they just stopped trying and left him as some kind of take-apart, put-back-together attraction.
Foxy's the favorite in this universe, too.
I think the employees refer to him as just the Mangle.
Or Toy Foxy, at least.
I wanted to ease your mind about any rumors you might have heard lately. You know how these local stories come and go and seldom mean anything.
I haven't heard any. Do you mind enlightening me?
That whatever is going on out there, however tragic it may be, has nothing to do with our establishment.
Okay, I'm comforted by that.
People trying to make a buck, you know. Our guard during the day has reported nothing unusual, and he's on watch.
I trust everything you say.
Okay, well anyway, hang in there and I'll talk with you tomorrow.
The use of the phone guy and things happening outside of the facility within the time of the game returns from the first game as a form of storytelling without interrupting the gameplay, although it's less climactic in this one. But as we already saw, and also as we haven't seen, this game has some other forms of storytelling, one of which is the interactive cutscenes that happen after certain nights, and one of them is the various mini-games that you get to play if you die enough times, which I didn't on my second time playing, so we're sadly not going to see any of them. All of the mini-games are sort of portrayed in this Atari adventure style. The first one I played involved playing as Freddy and following the puppet through, I'm guessing, this particular building, and it just kind of ended abruptly before anything happened. Another one that I played, you played as Foxy, and you ran to see the children from Pirate's Cove, and I think that would be based on the first game. And then there was a point at which you saw this mysterious purple man on the side, and you couldn't interact with him in any way, and the children were dead or something. The mysterious purple man returns in a different minigame where you play as Freddy once more, and you're trying to feed all these kids, and they keep getting hungry, and the game eventually slows to a halt, and you can't feed any of them even whenever you're right next to one who's crying and whining because he's hungry. And outside, you can see a child getting abducted, it seems, by the mysterious purple man. By the way, there's Balloon Girl under the desk, who I didn't notice at all whenever I played and doesn't seem to serve any purpose. The purple man I mentioned, he's one of the most talked about characters in this game. He's shrouded with mystery, he's evil, he's sadistic, and everyone calls him Purple Guy. Because he's a purple guy, but that's just such an unthreatening, informal name. I love it. He's not even the Purple People Eater, he's just Purple Guy. Although if there was the Purple People Eater, then we wouldn't have a problem, because the Purple People Eater only eats purple people. Anyways, there was one more minigame in which I played as the puppet, and I think what happened first was I went to give these children toys, and then the next goal was to give these animatronic suits life, whatever that means. And the minigames are a really cool way of showing off the story of the game without being totally direct about it. It's still very open-ended, you don't know exactly what's going on, but you can put the pieces together in your mind, sort of, once you have enough details. That is one of the reasons that Five Nights at Freddy's is considered by some to have the most compelling story in video games in a long time, perhaps not counting, you know, extremely involved RPGs and whatnot. But the minigames do come with a level of irritation because once you die, the first thing you want to do is get right back to playing again and see if you can succeed in the night, but then you have to play this minigame first, and it just delays your attempt. Now this is the night where I think the game becomes a lot less enjoyable and less frightening than the first. This is the #1 game changer to me. Any animatronic that's capable of entering the room from the front and standing in the room in front of you will attack you and kill you if you don't put up the mask right away. Sometimes they're just there whenever you lower the camera, sometimes they lower the camera automatically, and then you have to react in time. The game is carefully designed so that the button for the music box is right above the point where you would move the mouse down really quickly and put on your mask, but it's also a little bit awkward because on the left side of the bottom of the screen you have the thing that activates the mask, and on the right side you have the thing that activates the camera, and so in order to lower the camera and to put on the mask you have to move it down and down really fast. And sometimes the mouse doesn't do what you want it to, and you end up dying as a result. The reaction time, the reflex necessary to not die, is not so bad in Night 3. Night 4 it's kinda bad, Night 5 it's not good. Night 6 it kinda feels the same as Night 5 to me. Night 7 is horrible. I played that very briefly and decided no, I'm not gonna play Night 7. And by that I mean Golden Freddy aka 1020 mode. This feels entirely different from the first game, which never relied on instantaneous reflexes. You had Foxy running down the hallway, but there's still several seconds of leeway there, and that's much more manageable with a computer mouse or, heaven forbid, a trackpad on a laptop. A lot of times in these later nights, I would just die because my mouse didn't move the way I wanted it to, or I would just die because I was focusing on the music box and not something else, right at that moment. The game boils down then to focusing on two things: keeping the music box wound up tight, and flinging your mouse cursor to the bottom left corner of the screen at any other given opportunity. There's not much more to the game than that. So once you have a rhythm down, it is easier than the first game, but also more frustrating because you have to keep your eye on the music box, and so you can't really pay attention to anything else, and thus you don't have any warning. The need, or even the practicality, of checking any of the other rooms is made obsolete. Not to mention, whenever a character appears in front of you in this game, and you know that you didn't react in time, then at that point you're just waiting for death. The jump scare doesn't come off as remotely startling, at least not to me, because there's no tension in it anymore. You know it's coming, and you know that you're dead. And that's what happens every single time, because I die the same way every single time. It's hard to be startled by any sort of jump scare whenever it's always telegraphed several seconds before it happens. The same can be said for if you let the music box unwind completely, and then music starts playing. There's no tension involved, it's not surprising, you know that you're about to die, and that's it.
Okay, so just to update you, there's been somewhat of an investigation going on. We may end up having to close for a few days, I don't know.
A few days or forever.
So that it's really just a precaution. Fazbear Entertainment denies any wrongdoing. These things happen sometimes.
They deny it, that doesn't mean it didn't happen.
Just keep an eye on things and I'll keep you posted. Just as a side note though, try to avoid eye contact with any of the animatronics side if you can.
Oh yeah, I do like that feature.
Their facial recognition systems, we're not sure.
I appreciate how, I don't know how it factors in, but like, if you aren't looking at the animatronics whenever they enter the room, that apparently helps you in some way. I kind of talked over an important part of Phone Guy's message. He says that the animatronics behave just fine with kids, but whenever they are in the presence of an adult, they just stare. And since they tap into criminal databases, that implies that they have some kind of bad history with at least one adult, or perhaps the specific adults that arrive at the restaurant. And it's possible that they interpret every adult as a criminal due to some flaw in their programming. It's interesting to think about. The theorizing and analysis of the minigames that I mentioned earlier is more in-depth than I could have imagined it being, because it has been pointed out that the purple guy has white pupils and black eyes, and if it's dark or if it's nighttime, then you wouldn't see a white glint on someone's eyes, so perhaps he is an animatronic, and he has a light source within his eyes, kind of like Freddy does, very clearly in the darkness in Five Nights at Freddy's 1. It's possible that Five Nights at Freddy's 3 explains all this, but I have not played that one yet, and I've been trying to keep spoiler-free, so I will probably have played and recorded Five Nights at Freddy's 3 before uploading these videos. Oh, and another thing that I forgot to mention about the minigames is that some of them just end with a jump scare. The ones that I ran into were, one was the puppet, one was Golden Freddy. They seem really pointless to me, and I wasn't fazed by them at all because there wasn't any build-up to them. Sure, I didn't see them coming, but there wasn't a reason for me to feel threatened by them. But the fact that certain jump scares happen at the ends of certain minigames is also analyzed by the same people who analyze the minigames themselves, as far as piecing together the whole story of this universe. I'm surprised I haven't already brought up a particular difference that makes this game so much less scarier than the first to me. And that difference is, the first game is built around a limited resource, and the sequel is built around an unlimited resource. That being the music box that you can constantly wind back up. With the first game, because the power was limited and it was connected to everything in the game, every single action that you take, every single move that you make, affects the outcome of the whole night. When the clock in the corner went from 3 AM to 4 AM, or from 4 AM to 5 AM, that was a milestone. That was an indication that you were getting closer and closer to running out of power, at the same time that you were getting closer and closer to potentially getting through the night. There was a strain at the end of the night that wasn't there at the beginning. It all comes down to the wire. In the sequel, instead of putting all your focus on using as little power as possible while still eking by, all of your focus is on winding a music box every opportunity that you have. Essentially, you can restore your power by winding the music box. The actions that you take don't affect the entirety of the night, they only affect the immediate future, and because of that, the end of the night really feels no different from the beginning. In the first game, I would look at the clock constantly, because it meant something, and in this game, I didn't look at the clock at all. Now, you could argue that the flashlight battery in this game is the substitute for the power meter in the first game, but I don't really think that's a valid comparison because all of the first game was built around the power meter and everything affected it. In this game, the inclusion of the flashlight battery meter is kind of an afterthought. It's only there so that you don't use the flashlight 100% of the time. Only one of the actions that you perform in this game affects the battery at all, and it would be annoying if it wasn't lenient, so it's very lenient. There is far more than enough flashlight battery for you to make it through the night. The way that I play, I'm almost not even convinced that the flashlight can run out of battery. So the way I like to think about it is, if this game took out the flashlight battery, which is practically useless anyways, and took out the end of the night, then you could conceivably have an endless mode that feels roughly the same as just the main game as it is. With Five Nights at Freddy's 1, an endless mode would be literally impossible, and that's the reason that the end of the night feels so much more tense than the beginning. I guess something else I could talk about is how I feel about just the concept of this sequel. The first Five Nights at Freddy's took Scott about 6 months to make, and the sequel took about 3. And it's almost hard for me to believe that Scott probably started production after the first one got its reception, because when everyone played the first game, they said, why can't we just wear a Freddy costume and not have to worry about the monsters thinking that we're not in our costume? And Scott said, you know, that's a good idea, and then he made the Freddy Fazbear head in this game. And it's also possible that he saw everyone wishing that they had more to defend themselves with than just doors, and in response to that, he just plain takes the doors out. Gee, Scott, what a jerk move. But then there's also the distinct possibility that he had all of these ideas to begin with and just didn't know whether he was going to use them or not unless he made a sequel. Kind of like the Star Wars original trilogy. You can tell that Episode 4 A New Hope was made with the possibility of there being no more movies depending on how it was received. But it was received well. So Episode 5 ends with a cliffhanger, Episode 6 ties together with Episode 5 really closely, but all 3 installments were planned ahead of time. That is kind of the impression that I get with Five Nights at Freddy's. It kind of seems like the first game was made as a standalone game, and he wasn't sure if he was going to make more yet. I mean, Five Nights at Freddy's 1 has its own story, but it could very well stand on its own and not need anything else. But Five Nights at Freddy's 2 raises a lot more questions and is incomplete, in a way. And my assumption, based on what little I know, is that Five Nights at Freddy's 3 ties everything together. A new job. The puppet strikes back. Return of the security guy. Coming soon to DVD, Blu-ray, IMAX, Netflix, and VHS. puppet's really quite the attention seeker, isn't he? Maybe if I shake my head really fast, he will go away. Okay, first Freddy was It's Me, and now you're It's Me. What? Make up your mind.